Hey everyone, this is Mark Ryan coming at you with another video. Now, I guess Ed Litton, March 1st, announced that he will not seek a second term as SBC president. What does that mean? He'll have 1 year as SBC president, but that second year, which normally is an automatic, a given, technically you have to run for it, but normally I think they just kind of rubber stamp you and you get it. Well, would he have been elected for the second term? I don't know, because there's charges of plagiarism going on, and a few folks have called on him to resign. My understanding is that he is not resigning per se, but he will not seek that second term. Now, what do I think about this? I think it's a good thing. I mean, Ed Litton can move on. He's probably tired of thinking about plagiarism and the stuff day after day after day. He can move on. He can focus about other things. And beyond that, in June, the SBC can decide, hey, do we want a liberal candidate or a conservative candidate as the president of the SBC? But if you followed the last election, there were 4 candidates. There were, I think it's Randy Adams, who wanted to make sweeping, radical changes in the SBC, especially with corruption, particularly in NAM, the missions aspect of the SBC. And then there was Mike Stone, who just barely, came in second, more the conservative candidate. There was Al Mohler, who would be moderate, leaning, most people would say. And then Ed Litton, who was the most liberal candidate there. So really, we have March, April, and May, about 3 months, for candidates to kind of rise to the top of the discussion. There's probably already talk of it. I'm not in the SBC. I have no idea who the top candidates would be. Maybe Mike Stone will run again and maybe he'll win. Could that happen? Wouldn't shock me. I don't know, but we'll have those candidates come to the talk. I have no idea who the front runners would be. If you know, let me know in the comments. Maybe Al Mohler will run again and get some of Ed Litton's support there. In other words, though, we're going to see a new showdown just all over again, where you'll have a liberal candidate, I would think, rise to the top. Will he be as liberal as Ed Litton? Who knows? I don't know. Then maybe you'll have a moderate and a conservative, or 2 conservatives that could potentially split the vote. But my understanding is that they vote. It's narrowed down to 2 candidates, and then from those 2, they select one. I'm guessing that's how it always works. I'm not SBC. I don't know the process per se, but that's how I believe it worked last time. They narrowed it down to Ed Litton and Mike Stone, and then Ed Litton just barely edged out Mike Stone. So what's going to happen now? Well, who knows? A lot of conservatives have left the SBC. Josh Boyce, I think that's how you pronounce his name, just left, 2 months ago or so. And so a lot of your conservative, influence has already left. It's too late. And then this next conference is in, I believe, Anaheim, California. And there have been folks who said, well, that would probably give a slight advantage to your more liberal SBC folks. We'll watch just a short clip of this video of Ed Litton talking to Jennifer Rash about what is going on here.
I'm your host, Jennifer Rash. Dr. Litton, thanks for joining us.
Well, it's good to be with you, Jennifer.
All right, so we are just about 24 hours out from your big announcement, and where you sent a video message out to all Southern Baptists explaining that you have decided not to run for the second term as SBC president. And we'll get into all of that and talk through that. But I wanted to know, just at this 24-hour mark, what has it been like as far as the feedback and the response and the different reactions you've received?
Mostly very encouraging, and it's a lot of encouragement from friends, but even beyond that, people that are acquaintances and people I don't know have just been thankful for terms of service. That's how Southern Baptists are.
No, it's kind of an awkward moment in the interview I wanted to maybe highlight, in that she's going to ask Ed Litton, hey, how would you grade yourself on how you did as an SBC president? And, Is that a great question?
Well, on that note, how about 8 months in, 2/3 of the way in, grade yourself as an SBC president.
Nah, I'm not gonna do that. Listen, it's not that it's not that things like that don't matter to me, but I can't let my heart become consumed with that. There's work to do, and these goals are too important. It's not about me, and I I really believe that. And that's not to say there's not a battle within me.
Right.
But it's funny. I said something at the chapel at Sanford yesterday. I said, in life, when I was your age, talking to college students, I wanted a platform. And here's what I would have said. I want a platform from which I can glorify God. But sometimes God has an altar and not a platform. And so he is glorified as he chooses to be glorified.
Well, and
Honestly, I'm just glad that Ed Litton can move on. I think that he's glad that he can move on. The spotlight isn't on him anymore, and he can hopefully move on from Sermongate and the plagiarism. It would be nice if he were to reform his views away from this liberal drift in the SBC, but at least he can move on with his life. And the SBC is in a new tough situation in that, again, a liberal candidate will rise to the top, and so will a conservative candidate will rise to the top as well. And now we'll see a battle all over again. And the conservative folks have been dealt probably a pretty big blow recently in that Josh Boyce conservative churches are leaving the SBC. They've had it, especially with the Ed Litton Sermongate thing and him not resigning and just maintaining his position there. A lot of your conservative churches, and with what happened in losing, my understanding would be losing liability protections, some had to leave over that as well. But my last thought would be that the SBC has so much reforming to do. How can I say that? It's my understanding, and I think it's been fact checked and verified, that Steve Furtick is an Elevation Church as part of the SBC, and the SBC lacks the what would you call it? The faithfulness to God's word, the biblicalness to cast out Elevation Church from that fellowship. They refuse to do that. It's not being done. How difficult would that be to be done? I don't know. I'm not SBC. But Elevation Church should not be in that fellowship. They should be cast out. The same thing is true with the Game of Thrones church that does Harry Potter's church, and it's called Church by the Glades. I think they're SBC as well, if I understand it correctly. It's always hard to determine whether a church is SBC or not, I think. And so, in other words, there's a lot of problems in the SBC, and it takes a lot of reformation to do. And this might be the year where, if it doesn't happen in 2022, it's really, what would you call it? It's time. This is the final countdown. Someone play that music, play that music in this video. It's the final countdown, 2022. If a conservative is not elected, then farewell, SBC. It's time for conservative churches to leave, I would think. And I can't speak for all of them, maybe there's one that could make a good case for remaining in there. I don't think so, because you're in fellowship with churches that are abandoning some very important things. And to some degree, they're being unequally yoked. And God cares about purity in his bride, purity in the church. So conservative churches are going to have, in the SBC, are going to have a big decision to make here pretty soon. Who's their guy? Who's the conservative that they're going to rally around? Is that going to be Mike Stone? I don't know. Could be. It'll be interesting. And then second of all, if their guy does not win, well, will they stay or will they go? To quote another song, right? We're just quoting lots of songs today, I guess. And I'm in my skillet shirt. But then, hey, say maybe their conservative candidate wins. Will they be able to reform the SBC the way that it should be reformed? I don't know. I I don't think so. I think even if a conservative were to win, which I think is unlikely, I'll just say that, I don't think they could reform the SBC the way that it needs to. I think they'd be unwilling to do that. Because first of all, Steve Furtick's church should be cast out of the SBC, and Church by the Glades should as well. And then there needs to be some reform with critical race theory and intersectionality are not tools, and they need to kind of course correct on critical race theory and the liberal drift that has been in the SBC. Would they be able to do that? I don't know, because they've been bleeding. Mostly conservative churches, some liberal churches who have said you're not liberal enough or you're not just enough on racial issues. They've left as well. But I think conservative churches leaving, especially with Ed Litton as president, that's been more common. So let me know what you think in the comments. Who do you think will rise to the top of the list? I'm guessing Mike Stone might be fair to say. And then who's the other guy or the other two, the moderate and the more liberal candidate maybe? Let me know in the comments. And with that, I will see you in the next video.